podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to AI Scouted on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Dave Hendrick, joined as always by Mr. Karl Matchett. How are you, sir?
In superb form. How are you, Mr. Hendrick?
Well, I'm in better form than you. You are obviously our man on the ground in Germany for Euro 2024, and you are experiencing all of the delights, including the failure of the German train system.
It's interesting. We're going to put a positive spin on it and say that it all adds to the experience. Wasn't immense last night. I think yesterday to get to Dortmund in the first place, it should generally be about a 32-minute trip for me from where I've been staying. It was an hour and 45. Obviously, that's pre-game, so I left plenty of time to get there. That's no problem. Leaving, I think we left the stadium about 1 or just before 1, and got back to where I'm staying at 3:45 in the morning.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And yet, Mr. Matchett, professional that you are, here you are, good and early. The Drinkle fellow was in bed early last night, and there's no sign of him.
Yeah, I mean, look, say what you want about the Germans and their trains and their transport. They got nothing on Mr. Drinkle. And you should have heard the way he was going on about you being absent the other day when you were on the late on the pod and claiming millions of points your way and all the rest of it. Now, I owned up to when I missed the pod a couple of days ago because I just got lost of cities and days and all the rest of it. We'll hear no such apology from Guy.
No, not about it. I will say now I was furious because I got up really early for that day and you were absent. But I missed one, you missed one. I think Guy now has missed. It's this two he's missed.
He missed a couple at the beginning, don't forget. He was away on the lady.
During the group stage, deemed the group stage not important enough for himself.
Beneath him.
Right, we haven't spoken since before the two semi-finals. So let's start with Spain versus France. Spain 2, France 1. Kolo Muani puts France ahead. Lamine Yamal scores, I think, what's going to be the goal of the tournament. Dani Olmo, living up to your prediction, just being a difference maker. He gets the second Spain goal on 25 minutes. And that was all she wrote. France never really threatened to score after that. Uber disappointing performance, but as expected from a Didier Deschamps coach team. I was absolutely thrilled for Spain, Karl. I think they've been comfortably the best team in this tournament. And it's a victory for football that they have knocked France out, given what France have been serving up in this competition.
Yeah, this was honestly really, really disappointing from France. I think even you can argue the fact that they went ahead and then just never did anything thereafter. Like that was a moment where France, with the attacking quality that they could have, because Spain were shocked with conceding that goal. No two ways about it. They were very, very surprised. The manner of it, the fact that, France had a go, had a shot on target maybe. Like if France had pushed it then, I feel like they could well have caught Spain again. Like they could well have just overpowered Spain in that sort of 5-10 minute spell. If you get yourself a second goal in that period, that's really, really difficult to come back from. And we know France have been excellent defensively just as a result of their shape and position behind the ball and all the rest of it. But they didn't, and they were not those things either. I thought after their goal, even as early as it was, I thought France were really, really poor, like very naive, not really in a very good shape. Spain found it, I thought, too easy for a Euro semi-final to get back in the game. It was very, very good, obviously, from Spain, and the goal was exceptional, but I just thought France allowed them that capability to get back on terms.
Yeah, I completely agree, and we have to factor in that Spain were missing 3 key starters in that game. Carvajal, Lenormand and Pedri. Now, obviously, the difference between Pedri and Olmo is minimal in terms of quality. There are different types of players in that role. But as you pointed out before the semi-final, Olmo was more what they needed against France in that back line. But there's no denying that the drop-off, particularly at right-back, is quite stark from Dani Carvajal, who's in great form and has been for 2 years now, to Jesus Navas, who at 38 years of age really shouldn't be playing at this level anymore and is only a right back late in his career. He wasn't a right back in his 20s when he was a flying winger. But I think massive credit has to go to De La Fuente, Karl. Spain look, to me, an incredibly well-coached team and an incredibly well-managed team, because never once did it appear like their belief in themselves waned. They didn't move away from the game plan. It was obvious that they had planned pre-game, what happens if we go behind? Right, here's what we're going to do. I thought they just looked so well set up and well coached all throughout the game. And for a guy who, I mean, let's be fair, was a massive surprise when he got the job to anyone outside of Spain, maybe different in Spain, he has no real club coaching track record behind him. You know, Alaves is the only club job he's had in the last 25 years. He managed 2 small regional teams back around the turn of the century. He's been a youth coach. He's been a B team coach. He's been an underage coach with the national team. He failed with Alaves as a manager. He's gotten this job and he is absolutely thriving, and this team is thriving as a result.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is, to be honest, a big part of the reason why he got it, because he had that success with the youth groups, not just in terms of like the playing style and like the competitions that they won and all the rest of it, but I'm talking about this group of players. Like, they came off after, who did Spain play in the quarterfinals? I've completely forgotten.
They played Germany in the quarterfinals.
They played Germany, that's right. So the team that they ended up that game with, like, about half of that was his youth team. Like, that was quite a notable thing. Like, Simon, Ferrer had come on, Mikel Merino, Dani Olmo, Yarzábal, all of these players like were part of that group that he had in his, certainly in the 21s. I'm not sure all of them would have been in the 19s when he was there, but like that whole group of people and some others in the squad and some others who didn't make the squad as well, they've all been part of that collective. I think that's a big part of the reason why he got the job in the first place. But I totally agree with you. And even I would say the opposite way around. Like, not only did Spain look like they knew what to do when they were behind, which was largely played the same way, let's be honest, but maybe a bit more intensity. France didn't look like they knew what to do when they were ahead. Like, I'm sure it's not that simple. They didn't just like, oh, well, you know, obviously like go ahead and they were surprised or whatever, but they didn't really have any management of the game at that point. And I'm not really sure that they have had at any point, not real game management. You know, they've had a lot of control. They've dictated the parts of the pitch that the game is being played in. They didn't against Spain. They didn't manage that. And it seemed like when they weren't able to just determine how the game played out, they didn't really have any answers. I mean, you mentioned Navas. He was booked like really early on.
Yeah.
38 years old, playing fullback. And down France's left is Theo Hernandez and Kylian Mbappe. How many times did either of them run at him?
That's it. Like, when he got booked, Karl, I genuinely thought this guy's going to be sent off in the next 10 minutes here. And then they didn't test him at all. And you're exactly right. France have gotten to the semi-final by controlling space, by controlling the area that they're happy to concede the ball in. They haven't done anything in terms of controlling the ball and controlling time and possession. They've been far too willing to just give the ball away and stand back and say, okay, well, come and beat us. So Lamine Yamal decided, well, that's fine. If that's what you want to do, I'll just stick it in the top corner from fully 25 yards out. Mike Maignan be downed. And then following the goal of the tournament, we got potentially the assist of the tournament in the shape of one of the worst defensive headers I've ever seen from William Saliba. Now, it's genius from Olmo. The first touch is incredible. The second touch is excellent. And then Saliba, the quote-unquote best defender in the Premier League, having given away the ball with a pathetic header, doesn't charge the ball, then it ambles towards it, and lets Olmo get his shot away. And to be honest, as soon as that went in, I knew it was over. I said on every podcast I did before this game, if Spain score 2, they're going through, because France do not have 2 goals in them. Despite the fact they've got Mbappe, they've got Kolo Muani, they've got more talent than anybody at the tournament, they don't have 2 goals in them. That Kolo Muani goal is the only goal from open play scored by a French player in this competition. That is a disgrace. And then they compound it by coming out the next day and saying, oh, well, of course Deschamps is staying on till the World Cup. He's reached his objective. If the objective for Deschamps is just to get the semi-final by whatever means necessary, there is something deeply wrong with French football. Because they walked into the 2016 Euros with the most talented squad. We're now in 2024. We've had the 16 Euros, the 18 World Cup, the 20 Euros, the 22 World Cup, and now this. That's 5 competitions where they have had undeniably the most talented squad. And they've won 1 of them. And I know they got to 2 other finals and all the rest. But ultimately, they've won 1 of 5. Despite this incredible... Like this, Karl, genuinely might be the most talented 8 years any nation has had in terms of the players available to them. And there's no question for me, he has hugely underachieved by only winning 1 of the 5 tournaments.
I mean, I think, not just because they played them now, but in winning terms, Spain and the group that they had are the standard bearers. So if you look at Spain's 3 in a row, if you think that this squad, the group, and not just the ones who are here, not just the 26, but the group that they've had across these last batch of tournaments are of the same caliber, you certainly need to be getting close to Spain. Like 3 in a row is pretty unprecedented, let's be honest, and it was astonishing that they did that and all of it. But over, let's say, 4 or 5 tournaments, you need to be winning 2 if you think that you're as good a side as that Spain one was. Like if you win 2 out of 4 or 5 and maybe get to another final, I think
that would be fair.
That's very, very comparable. Like the final is another occasion.
It's not only that. Spain were going up against better competition than this.
Yeah.
Like, the other side of it is not just that France have had this incredible group of players. The field have dipped. International football, the quality in general is very poor compared to where it was when Spain was doing what they were doing. And I know you said 3 in a row was unprecedented. We might be about to see it happen in South America with Argentina, which, I mean, like, let's be honest, that Argentine team is not a patch on that Spain team. It's very good, but it's not that Spain team, and yet they're about to do it. And I would argue the Copa is harder to win than the Euros because there's no weak teams, really. There's a couple, Jamaica, Panama, but like it's a higher overall level of competition than what I think this is. I can't believe they're going to give him another crack. I really can't. Zidane is sitting there. Zidane walks in, he wins the World Cup with this group. And you're going to roll it back with this failure.
Yeah, I think Zidane, let alone the name, let alone the how good do you think he is or all the rest of it, just the ability to pull a team together and let them play their best way. You put an Ancelotti or Zidane in that kind of person into the France group makes them a very, very different proposition all of a sudden.
So, Spain make it to the final. And completing what we will be calling the Karl match at Derby, England beat Netherlands 2-1 with the help of some very, very questionable officiating, Karl matches. Xavi Simons puts Netherlands 1-0 up, absolutely bodies Declan Rice, leaves him sprawling on the floor, and then drives forward. Defence doesn't come out quick enough to meet him. He hits a really well-struck shot, but I can't help but feel a goalkeeper with normal-sized arms gets a hand to it. The Netherlands go 1-up. And then Ronald Koeman thinks he's in charge of Everton and begins to play entirely into England hands. England were wobbling when that goal went in. and yet the Netherlands didn't try and take advantage of it. 16 minutes in, Harry Kane has a volley. Dumfries goes for the block. Kane skies it. Nothing more of it. But VAR decides to intervene. I think this is a very fortunate award of a penalty. It's given. Kane steps up, scores. England start to play well and have arguably, from about 20 minutes on, their best spell in the tournament thus far. Now, it is aided and abetted by Ronald Koeman. 35 minutes in, Memphis Depay gets hurt. And he decides to bring on Joey fucking Vermin, who, as we've talked about, has been garbage in this competition. So he takes off his number 9 and hands all of the advantage to England. And then at half-time, having lost Memphis, you've got now an attack, which is a 3-man attack, of Malen, Simmons, and Gakpo. Malen is the only one with any kind of pace. And at half-time, he brings him off and puts on Weghorst. No pace at all to trouble that England backline. Now, I thought the second half, I thought Luke Shaw made a decent impact, but I thought the second half was quite poor in terms of overall quality. England make changes on the 80th minute. They bring on Cole Palmer, they bring on Ollie Watkins, and on 90 minutes, it's Cole Palmer to Ollie Watkins, and an incredibly good finish from a very, very tight angle. But prior to that, Karl, there'd been quite a few very questionable decisions by the referee in 50-50 situations, including 3 minutes before the goal, where it's a very clear Netherlands corner. He gives a goal kick and then has the audacity to book Virgil van Dijk for complaining about it. And if that corner is given, it's very possible we don't find ourselves in a situation on 90 minutes where Cole Palmer is sliding the ball to Ollie Watkins. What did you think of the game? What did you think of the referee? And what do you make of England, given how they've played in this tournament, finding themselves in the final?
Thought the referee was spot on, yeah. There were some poor 50-50 decisions. Absolutely agree with that. Sometimes it seemed like free kicks were being given for absolutely nothing when there was like neither of the players were even really appealing for it in some situations. The penalty, like I've seen a lot of debate about this, and like I get it, but it's one of those ones where I think it is a penalty or it is a foul, even though it's a stupid rule, if you know what I mean. Like, I don't think that the giving of the penalty is a problem so much as that kind of challenge now being seen as a foul. Like, it's two people going for the ball, and one just happens to get there a split second beforehand because one has to get there a split second beforehand. Like, someone's got to reach the ball, like. So it's just Kane's follow-through obviously catches Dumfries because he has also gone for the ball. Like, we see it in like midfield all the time, and like the ball's bouncing and one gets there first and then he goes down clutching because he's followed through and kicked the boot of the other person, and he still wins the free kick. So it's given all the time. I think it's a crap rule. I don't think it's a foul in either direction, like, but it is given usually. You don't normally see them given as penalty, is the thing that I would say. But as I say, like that generally speaking is in open play elsewhere, the rule. Like, if you get there second for a 50-50 mid-air bouncing ball, whatever it is, and somebody kicks you, that foul is given against you. Like I say, it's crap. It's stupid. It doesn't make sense, but that's what it is. So I think it's right, even though the ruling is wrong, if you know what I mean.
I think it's a scandal, quite frankly. I hate the rule. I absolutely hate the rule. If I just lost your shot and you kick my foot, how is that my fault?
Yeah, it's pointless. It's an awful free kick which is given loads and loads of times a game, and I hate it, but it is given. That's what I mean. Like, you wouldn't normally see it given for a penalty, but that action does lead to free kicks.
I mean, the thing is, that was given by the VAR as well. The referee missed it on field, or saw it and decided it wasn't a penalty. But it's the other 50-50 decisions that really bugged me in this game. Like, every single one of them seemed to go to England. Even like like you said, players were not asking for free kicks, and yet he was giving them anyway. And of course, it is worth pointing out that as a young man, this referee was banned for being involved in a match-fixing scandal and accepting bribes.
You're sounding a bit Jude Bellingham-like now.
Well, is it not true that he was banned in 2005?
It is true, although a lot around that, let's say.
He's also been at the centre of a lot of controversy over the years with really poor decisions that he's made. He's also somebody that Jude Bellingham in 2021 came out and said, you give a referee that has fixed a match before the biggest game in Germany, what do you expect after a disgraceful performance in a Bayern versus Dortmund game? But yet Jude would have given him a hug last night.
No, at certain points he wouldn't have.
Well, he'd given him a hug quicker than any Dutch player would have, let's just be clear on that.
Yeah, well, referee aside, I think quite comfortably England's best performance, like certainly the first 45 minutes. I think England were, shall we say, the gap between how good England were and Netherlands were was bigger in the first half than it was in the second half, in the opposite direction, if you get me. I think from about 55, 60 onwards, England just ceded all possession of the game. They'd let it drift. They had not really taken the impetus to keep themselves on the front foot and keep the speed of play going, which was what was troubling the Netherlands in the first half. That's why England are better, because they have those better technical creative players who are really good at taking the ball in the half turn. But you have to play fast to make the most of that. You have to have tempo to the game to allow them to manipulate the ball in that way and to exploit spaces and to find each other between the lines. And they did that first half and then stepped off completely second half. And then that slow passing, the sideways, the possession retention isn't going to break anybody down. So it certainly isn't going to break down Ake, Van Dijk, De Ligt and Dumfries, who had a pretty good tournament, if we're being honest, even defensively for the most part. So that period of the game, sort of 60 onwards, Netherlands were definitely better. But again, there's always a little bit lacking from them, isn't it? There wasn't quite enough, whether it was an overcommitting of numbers or whether it was decent delivery into the area once they had Weghorst up top. It was all a little bit... It was still a little bit safe because it was 1-1, if you know what I mean, from their perspective, even though they were in the ascendancy and they didn't really press their advantage in the way that they could have. And they couldn't have foreseen that it would cost them in the exact manner that it did, but that is always the risk if you're on top and you don't really do very much to make the most of that.
Well, if you decide to play with 0 players who can run at any kind of pace in your attack, despite having more of the ball, you're not really going to trouble an opposition defence that is packed in. And, the decision to bring on Brian Brobby and Joshua Zirkzee 3 minutes after the goal goes in was just laughable. Like, you might as well not have bothered. I think Koeman cost his team massively here. But England have reached the final. Now, I saw this from Dan Kennett, Karl, and I want your thoughts on it. England have reached the final despite a negative non-penalty XG difference. They've got 0.72 per 90 attacking XG and 0.79 defensive XG across the tournament. Spain are at 1.73 per 90 attacking, which is top 4 in the Premier League, while England have relegation numbers in any of the top 5 leagues, and 0.86 defensively despite playing significantly harder opponents. It's truly remarkable that England find themselves in the final. I went back and looked at previous Euros. I'm pretty certain if you were to average out the FIFA ranking of every team played by a team who got to the final, England have had the easiest path to a final in European Championship history. Harry Kane wants you to believe, though, that it's been a very tough path. He also would like you to know that England have played away from home in this tournament, seemingly unfamiliar with tournament football and the fact that all teams, bar the host team, play away from home. England are in a final for the second time, and this is the Karl Matchett derby. This is England versus Spain. So immediately after the game, were you thinking England are going to win this or Spain are going to win this?
I think it's very difficult to think anything other than Spain are going to win it, but I was thinking that we saw a few ways in which England could win it or could have their chances to win it, let's say. Spain,
is one of them not starting Harry Kane?
No, that wasn't precisely what I was thinking of, but look, I mean, Spain are going to be wild favourites, and rightly so. They've been the best team. They've been the best set-up team. They are technically the best side out of the tournament by a bit of a distance. But part of the reason why, when we spoke about the Netherlands match, I said I thought we'd see an improved England performance is because this is the first team that's going to attack England. And quite clearly, they haven't had either the coaching or the right setup to allow themselves to be very, very good attacking just in general. Like, you know, they're not a very swift moving side. They're not a very forceful, aggressive, high pressing, big transitions team, nothing like that. It's much more about calm dominance and then attacking when the opportunity arises, a few moments, that kind of thing. But when they have a team who does attack them, you can see that suddenly there is that ability when there's a bit more space, when there's a bit more potential to exploit in behind certain players. So Spain, I would imagine, are going to dominate the final. Possession-wise, territory-wise, in large stretches. I think that is a better thing for England than if they were just able to dictate the game themselves. And it probably makes for a better final as well, let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, England did have most of the ball last night, and their best spell of the tournament, that spell in the first half, kind of a few minutes after the Dutch goal went in, up until probably, what you said, 55, in and around there. Like, they did dominate the ball. We're yet to see them look good when they don't dominate the ball. So it will be interesting to see how Southgate sets up. My assumption is he'll stick with this back three now.
Yeah.
My assumption is it's going to be the same starting 11. I don't think he'll risk starting Luke Shaw. Not off the back of, 45 minutes in this one and half an hour in the last one, something along that line. Maybe he will. Maybe he will, but
it will depend on Trippier as well, who potentially has a bit of a groin issue.
He's had that all tournament, hasn't he?
Mm.
So they've been managing that all tournament. I suppose he might feel that Shaw is better suited to trying to stop Lamine Yamal. I'm very excited to see the battle between the Spanish wingers and the English wide centre-backs and flanking wing-backs. I think that could really be where this game is won and lost. Kyle Walker is finally going to have a purpose in this game because there will be a lightning-quick left winger who's in great form. First time all tournament that he's going to play an actual pacey winger in form. Can he marginalise Nico Williams and justify the fact that England have had him in the team all tournament despite the fact he hasn't been playing well? We'll see. I think it's a fascinating final. I think when the draw was made when the draw became clear for the knockouts, I think quite a few people picked this final. It was England were by far the favourites from the bottom half of the draw. And then it was just, who do you think is coming through from, let's be honest, nobody really gave Portugal much chance because they had to go through France. But Spain, Germany, Portugal, France were the four. I think a lot of people picked Spain after the group stage. Germany were probably the second most common pick, and then the French. Yeah, I mean, look, it's fascinating, but it's tough to say that England deserve to be in the final given the performances, but they've won the games and they're in the final. And Gareth Southgate, Karl, is surely going to get a knighthood if they win, and you know what that means. It means that he has to follow on the great tradition of knighted men managing Manchester United. Sir Matt Busby, Sir Alex Ferguson, and Sir Gareth Southgate.
And maybe that will come to pass one day, but Eric's got himself a new contract, so let's just leave that one for now.
Just a 1-year extension, though. Not really showing great faith in the man, are you, with a 1-year extension? Seems to me like you probably wouldn't have got that extension if Southgate had said he'd take the job. We'll leave it there for today. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we go?
No, we're going to have a couple of pods, aren't we, in the build-up for the final, so plenty more that we can talk about, and we've had a couple of requests, I believe, come in on Discord, so if there's anything specific that people want to speak about or hear about, tournament-wise, players-wise, teams-wise, the next tournament, anything like that, then send them on in and we'll do our best. If our answering machine guy wakes up and ever joins us again, obviously.
Yeah, we will have a pod on Friday morning. We will have one on Saturday morning, which will be our preview of the final. There'll be no pod Sunday morning pre-final. Saturday will be the last one during the tournament, and then whenever Karl gets back to the UK and is available, we will do kind of a big tournament wrap-up. And then we'll be back to normal, regular scheduled programming. So, Mr. Matchett, go enjoy your day, attack the day, and maybe go down and write a strongly worded letter to the people that run the trains, because it sounds like it was absolute chaos. See you tomorrow, folks. Bye-bye.
Sports Social Podcast Network.